Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Kyle and welcome to an extremely exciting After Effects tutorial. Oh yeah! And by extremely exciting, I actually mean we're just going to go over the basics. But this is going to be a basic After Effects tutorial to give you a reference for actual things that you will use, rather than just a beginner After Effects tutorial where you know where all the buttons are located. Hopefully, after the first couple episodes of this, or maybe even this episode, depending on how much coffee I've ingested, you'll be able to say, okay, well, I know what this button does. I know how to use it in a practical sense, so I go and start creating things. Now, we'll warn you, I've tried to record this tutorial like 2 or 3 times today. The first time I stopped it to hear what I sounded like, which I don't like, and I realized that I had the mouse clicks on, and I don't know if you noticed, but I'm clicking the mouse a whole bunch, and every time I would do that, it would make this extremely loud mouse click sound that just sounded ridiculous. And like I talk with my hands in real life, so I have the mouse in the air and I'm kind of swinging it around like a Wii remote. Um, on my mouse. That's how I use the mouse. Is basically what I'm saying. Second time I recorded it, my mom called me, and obviously I'm not gonna just ignore my mom. So I answered, and she was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Nothing, mom. I'm recording a tutorial." And she was like, "Okay, what are you recording on?" I said, "After Effects." She was like, "What's that?" And I said, "A program." And then she was like, "Okay," and I was like, "Love you, bye." And then third time, I think I got hungry, so I got a pizza. And now this is the fourth time, and hopefully nothing will go wrong, but probably, I mean, things have already gone pretty far south as it is, and you've probably already exited out of the tutorial. But let's keep going regardless. This is After Effects. If you've made it here, you've made it past the tip of the day if it's the first time you've ever opened the program. So congratulations, you're pretty much halfway to learning this program. Now you may see a lot of buttons here, hopefully if you're not blind, and don't be intimidated because we'll go over almost all of this so that you'll know what these things do and you'll be able to figure out, okay, I can use this for that or this for that. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this part of the screen and then I'm just going to kind of come down to um, this area, I guess. I could go down here, but you can't see it because that's my time, 6:06 p.m. But let's go to the file menu. And here the file menu you have it's kind of simple. We've got new project. We can create new projects, which I just did. If I was to create a new composition and then I did file new project, it would ask me if I wanted to save it. And obviously I don't. After Effects quit bugging me because I'm making a tutorial. I can open a project, click Control O to open a project. I can open a recent project, which I don't really want to do. Um, I can browse in Bridge, which is Adobe Bridge. That'll let you look through files and things like that. But once again, I hardly ever use Bridge. You can close the project, or you can just go to the X here and close it. Or if you're on a Mac, you can just go to Quit After Effects. Um, and then you can also go to Save As. You can save it as a copy, as an XML, or as a CS5.5 if you want to downgrade your project file. You can also increment and save as well. Importing is pretty important. You can import different things. So let's just go ahead and import this concrete wall here on my desktop. So now that we have this concrete wall that we just imported in our project panel, and we'll go over this very shortly. You can import recent footage. See, there's the concrete wall that I just imported. I can import this other concrete wall. I got a lot of walls in my computer, in case you haven't noticed. Anyways, um, you can also export and add to render queue, which would add this composition here to the render queue, or it'll add this smooth white concrete wall texture to the render queue. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to delete that. I'm clicking on it and pressing backspace or delete. I'm also going to get rid of this composition because we don't want it. Okay, Adobe Dynamic Link, which is in Premiere Pro. We won't be working in that on this tutorial, but we may get there. If you like my tutorials, we might do it. You can do Find, which will allow you to search for things and find them. Not going to do that either. But let's just kind of skip the rest of this because some of this stuff we don't really need to worry about right now. Scripts we'll get into later because they're amazing. Let's go to the Edit panel, or the Edit tab. The Edit tab is pretty simple. Pretty much Edit tab for all programs look the same. I do want to draw your attention to the general, the preferences in general. So you can go in here and you can change your settings. one thing I always do is I go to my appearance and I just kind of bring it all the way down. I think After Effects starts like right there, and I just kind of bring it down. See what the default is. Okay, the default's there. I just bring it all the way down because I like the way that looks. I also have cycle mask colors selected so that my masks all look a different color when I'm creating them. And let's see, autosave. Also autosave every 10 minutes and have a maximum of 3 project versions. It's a great idea to have autosave on because if you're working on a very important project and After Effects randomly crashes, it kind of sucks whenever you don't have it saved. And so I like to save it every 10 minutes. Okay, that's it for the Edit tab. Let's go to the composition. Now this is kind of the meat of everything as far as compositions go. Namely, the tab is called Composition. So let's go ahead and create a new composition. So in here we have presets. We can go through the presets. We can cycle through here NTSC DV, which is 720 by 480. We can create HD at 30 frames a second. But I'm just going to create a 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to do 23.976, which is how 24 frames per second, basically. And composition name, we can rename it to tutorial. And we can pick a background color, which I think it's default to black, and depending on what I'm working on, I just use different colors, but I'll just put it on black. Frame rate, went through that. Resolution, keep it on full. You can bring it to half, but I normally leave it on full. You can pick when you want to start your time code. I normally leave it on 0. And the duration, right now we're having a 10-second duration, which seems great to me. Actually, let's make it 10 seconds and 10 frames. It's gotta have it like that. It's very, very important to have it there. Okay, so we just created a new composition, and basically now we have this big black box in this middle area here, which is our composition panel. And this is going to show us, once we start creating things, everything that we create is going to show up right here. So for instance, if I were to create some text, just type in my name, or text, whatever. I typed that before I even said anything. The text here is here in our composition panel, but it's also here in our live view area. So let's just get rid of that text layer. Okay, so also in the composition we have composition settings, which we can change the settings for the composition. We have set poster time, which don't really need to worry about right now. Trim comp to work area. This little thing here is your work area. So if I wanted to basically, if I had an animation in this area here, and I wanted to make that my entire composition, I can go to composition, trim comp to work area, and it would trim the entire composition to the area, and I can render out just that area. But I'm press Control Z and bring it back to how it was before. Back to the composition panel, catch, work area, and background. Just don't worry about that right now. We can do preview, which is a RAM preview. So for instance, if we had some text layer, and we basically keyframe. I'm going to go kind of fast here, but don't worry, I will catch you up very shortly. So if I just kind of had this animation here where my name is going back and forth, if I wanted to go to composition preview and do a RAM preview, it'll just do that preview. It'll render it, and then it'll preview it in real time. You can also press 0 on the numpad to do that, which is generally how I do the previews. Let's get rid of this. You can also save frame as a file, so it'll take the current frame you're at and save it as a file. You can save it as any file you want, JPEG, sequence, Photoshop layer, anything like that. You can do pre-renders, which I hardly ever do. You can also save the RAM preview. So that RAM preview there, you can just save that preview. Composition flowchart, mini flowchart, won't worry about that right now either. Layer, this is also a very, very important area. So we can go to Layer, New, Solid, and that'll create a new solid. So let me just go through here. We have the width and the height, similar to the composition settings. So that's pretty good. And I can click a different color for my solids. Let's click like a bluish color here for the solid. So what that's done, it's created a royal blue, solid down here. And that solid can be manipulated any way we want. We can scale it down and put it in our composition, however we want. And it's basically created a solid there. We can also create another solid, maybe a different color, like a green. Put that in there. And now we have 2 of these layers in this composition that we can work with in After Effects. Now, before, I do want to touch on this really for a second. The way I started in After Effects is I started in motion graphics, and that's kind of how I'm gearing this tutorial to move toward, is toward the motion graphics side of things, because that's where I started. I think that's a good idea to start working with motion graphics and creating titles and intros and things like that, and then working on that later, and then going into visual effects and compositing later. So that's kind of what I'm doing, and if you don't like it, then I'm sorry, but why don't you cry me a river or something? I'm just kidding. And then also in the layer panel, we can create a new text layer, which is what I was doing by pressing Control T, and I'll just type my name in again. So there's the new text layer. Also, if you want to create a new solid fast, you can press Control Y, and that'll create a new solid. So now we have this text, this solid and solid layer, and my name layer. Now if I click on my name here and I move it around, I'm not going to move the solid behind it. Actually, I have to click on the solid either in this panel here or down here and move it separately. But then it's kind of hard to click on my text, so I gotta go down here and click on the text. So there you go. There's a couple other things that we can create in the layer panel. We can create new light, new camera, null objects, shapes, adjustment layers, and Adobe Photoshop file. We'll get to these later. Solid settings, we can change the settings in solid just like in composition settings. We can create new masks. I don't really make new masks in this area here. I don't want to leave all this alone. Pretty much I use shortcuts to get this. So let's leave this alone for a minute. Effect panels. This is definitely the meat of After Effects. These are all the different effects. Now you won't have some of the effects that I do because I have a lot of stuff I've purchased. Like this Magic Bullet Suite, the Foundry, Trapcode, Video Copilot, Revision plugins. So you won't have these, but you'll have like all these here and some of these and different ones. And we'll go over the effects. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't do when they get in After Effects is they just kind of like look at these effects and say, okay, bye. What I would suggest is to go to your effects and presets and just let that load for a little bit. And I have a lot of effects and presets installed here. Okay, and go to your animation presets, and you can just go around here and start playing with these so you can get an idea of what some effects do. Because once you add in, like, let's see, this behavior here to my name, it'll make my name fade in, and you can see how these things work in a realistic setting. But I'm actually just going to delete that. And what I would also suggest is going into the effect panel and just picking some effects at random and playing with them just to figure out what they do. Because you can go watch tutorials all day that go over specific effects, but there's several different ways to use one single effect, and it's just a matter of getting in there and working with it yourself. Because it would take me such a long time to go through every single one of these effects and give a tutorial on it. But that's just my suggestion to you. If you don't want to take it, then you don't have to. But we'll get that in a minute. Animation. The only thing I really mess with in animation is presets and keyframe assistance. But we'll leave this here for a moment. View, we'll leave it alone. Window, you can change your window. Like for instance, if you don't see something here that I'm talking about, it's probably because you don't have it shown. So you can go to the window panel and find it, like paint. I don't ever use that, hardly ever, but I'm just exit out of it. And help. This only helps in After Effects. If something in real life happens and you click on the help menu, like help, my house is on fire, it's not going to help. Trust me, it doesn't. So you actually have to call like 911 or something. Okay, so that's this line. Jeez, I've talked for a while on that. And now let's go to this little bit here. This is your arrow tool. The shortcut for that is V. And basically what the arrow tool does is let you click on things and move them around without just affecting the position. You have your hand tool here, and the hand tool lets you move around the entire composition without affecting any of the layers inside it. So if I want to zoom in here, let me grab a text layer here and just scale this down so we can see it. If I'm working on this text here, and I want to zoom in like that, and I want to move it over. So I can move it over pressing V, and then I can zoom in and press H, or do the hand tool by holding down the space bar. I can move around, and the way I'm zooming in and out is just scrolling back and forth on the mouse wheel. And there we go. And then I can press V, and I can move the text around without, just moving the text. And then the hand tool moves everything. Then we have the rotation tool, which would allow me to rotate my text or my layer back here. Then we have the camera tool, which is we can create cameras in After Effects. So if we go to Layer, New, Camera, it's going to give us a warning because we don't have any 3D layers. Okay, I got it. But if we press F4 on our keyboard, we have this little 3D box. So we can press that there, and it'll make our text layer 3D. So if I have the camera tool selected, I can actually fly around in 3D space, which is pretty nice. So the text layer is in 3D, and I can zoom around. I can also make a background layer 3D, and it'll update accordingly. And then if I press V, and I grab the Z parameter for the text layer, and press C, which is the keyboard shortcut for the camera tool, I can actually see that these are in 3D space separately. So that's really nice. I'm just going to delete this camera. This is the pan behind tool. You see where the rotation parameter is on the text layer. So what's happening there is it's rotating. It's rotating on that one specific joint. But if I wanted it to rotate here, I could press the pan behind tool, or Y, on the keyboard, and move it to that corner. And now if I rotate it, it'll rotate along that area there. So that's very nice. Also rotate, you press W on the keyboard for rotate. That'll give you the rotate tool. Then we have our rectangular mask tool. If you hold down this, if you click on this and hold down, it'll give you different options for masks. So what rectangular masks does, it's a rectangular mask that basically masks out a certain part of the object. So the original object is still there. So if we delete this mask, the original object is still there. It's just the mask is masking it out. So I can actually click on this mask and move it to different areas. So that's something interesting to know as well. And then we also have elliptical masks, things like that. If I create a new solid, but go and layer a new solid, something cool I want to show you. So if I have this big solid here, if I go to like the elliptical mask tool or the rectangular mask and double click on it, it'll create a mask that fills up this space around it evenly. So if this was a square solid, it would make a perfect circle. Then we have our pen tool, which if you press G on the keyboard, it'll give you the pen tool. And this just allows you to draw masks kind of freehand, and you can do like Bezier curves as well. So let me delete this first mask. So now we have that shape there. Just let me delete that. And then we have our text tool, which I went over a few minutes ago. I went over this. So we have the text tool. If I press S, I can actually scale it down in the project panel. So there you go. And then we have the clone tool, brush tool, eraser tool, rotor brush if you're in After Effects CS 5.5 and or higher, and the puppet pen tool, which I think is CS5. Which we won't go over these right now. Okay, so that's the idea for the basics of After Effects. And now what I want to do is I want to import, I imported these earlier. So let me pick this, and if I drag this to this little icon here, this icon down here creates a new composition. So if I drag this layer here into a new composition, it'll make a new composition with the size of that composition. And then I can go back to my tutorial comp, take that and put it in there. So that composition, this composition is nested in this composition, and I can double click it and open it up just like that. So that's really nice to know. So that's the idea for the basics of After Effects. I think I'm going to end there, and the next tutorial I'm going to go over this area here, doing basic keyframes, animating, position, scale, and rotation, and getting a little bit of motion blur and things like that. I hope this was helpful, and I may have went a little bit too fast. I'm trying to cram a lot of information into a very quick tutorial. But if you have any questions, leave it in the comments section, and I'll see you guys next time.